Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Makers Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me I have an amazing gentleman. His name is Malcolm Grissom. Did I say that correctly, Malcolm?
You most certainly did. Like
awesome.
that. Yes.
I've known Malcolm for a few years now. He's an amazing soul, heart-centered, and what he's about to share with you is, I think, very important. So thank you, Malcolm, for taking time out of your busy day to be here, and thank you, audience members, for tuning in. Malcolm, can you tell our audience members a little bit about what you do, how you got involved in doing that, and why it should be?
Sure. Well, so I'm a career coach, and I have been for quite a while. I've worked with adults who are unemployed and looking for work, and I've done that for quite a long time. And I've turned my focus to working specifically with youth, 16 to 24, because I want to help them get started and find a career and find a purpose, and help them establish different ways to reinvent themselves, because that's what they're going to be facing in the world to come, the world today and the world to come.
Right. And I love what you do, because initially what you said about the, let's call it the older generation, although it's not that old, people who have actually pursued a career, or they have gone a certain direction, and then they have found out, hey, this doesn't bring me fulfillment, and they're looking for a new way of recreating themselves, like a rebirth. But more and more we're finding out, whether it's because of our parenting, whether it's because of society and the way we're educating the kids are not fully mature enough to discover themselves, who they are, what they stand for, what they stand against. And so when they're getting to college, or they're coming out of the college, they're really struggling to figure out what life is all about and which direction to take. So this is really important what you're doing, and I thank you for doing that. Now, what are some of the typical challenges that you see audience members come to you and complain about?
Well, the typical things would be like, well, of course, I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. And my parents or nobody's really helping me discover very clearly. But then it's, should I focus, where should my focus be? Should my focus be on success? Should I focus on what I really am passionate about, or what they don't use that term, but what I like and enjoy doing, and then how can I go about using what my interests are to find work, and and then that's just getting started. That's the tip of the iceberg. And then once there's the work search, then it's, well, the resume, should I focus on my resume, or how do I interview correctly, and all that. And so
Yeah. And you have had a lot of experience in that. Do you see that there's a big difference between the older population, quote unquote, and the people who are just coming out of school and trying to figure things out when it comes to values? Because, in order for you to set your course, you need to know what you want, right? And that needs to have some alignment with what's important to you. Do the older people know what's important to them and the younger people don't, or is it pretty much the same for both of them?
It's, I think in the majority of my experience, a lot of it is the same. However, I found a lot with adults that they may know, but they're stuck now. Like, I hear so many people saying to me, I wish I had found you earlier. I wish I knew that, which is why I've decided to focus on youth, because I want to get people started correctly.
Before all the responsibilities start coming in, student debt and family life and parenthood, everything else in relationships. That's very important.
Then they get stuck in a job that they don't like, and it's not fulfilling, and
Right. Absolutely. So that's a really important point because, you know, when you are loaded and like you said, you get stuck and you've built a life around what you've built, it's much more difficult to course correct.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really important. Cool.
Mhm.
Now, if a person comes to you and they're 18, 20 years old, naturally they've been raised a certain way, they have been pursuing certain things, and maybe they've been told, hey, you know what, you need to have a good resume, and it doesn't matter what your interests are, it's all about the resume, right?
Right.
So that being the case, what are some of the challenges that you also hear as far as people having to change things about themselves in order for them to start heading in the right direction?
Well, I think you just hit it on the nail. They've been grown. They've been taught a certain way by quote unquote authorities, and in reality, it's really quite different out there once they get in the world, right? And so, and the thing is that you can't really change someone's mind, especially if they're young and their parents especially have taught them a certain way. You can't right off the bat say, no, this is wrong, do it this way and all that. I think you really have to meet the child where, I say child, I'm sorry, young adults,
right?
Yeah, where they are, right? You have to meet them where they are and then work with that and guide them slowly to where you want them to go, or in this case, where I want them to go.
Right, exactly. All right, so we're going to get to the young adults and the people that are trying to figure out the course in their life. But for the parents who have younger kids, do you have any word of advice as far as what to do for their children so that when they get the children to be young adults, they're going to be that much more aligned with their values and passions?
Yes, experiment with a lot of things with your children. You know, that's really with, so in our culture, in our workforce today, the average, like in San Francisco, so I'm right near San Francisco, for instance, the average person pre-pandemic who had an entry-level job, they had it for 1 to 3 years, which is much different than it was in, you know, my generation, where you had careers that lasted a while.
Right.
So people are going to need to reinvent themselves many times throughout their lives. That's just the way it is, right? Or I should say most people. And so, yes, the more experimenting you can do to see what your child likes, what they enjoy to do, where their strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and then see if you can turn those weaknesses into strengths and things like that. That would be great.
That's really cool advice. Now, I forgot early on to ask you, how did you get involved in this in the first place? What drove you to this?
Okay, well, long story short. So for me, I grew up, thankfully, knowing that I wanted to be an entertainer. But I wasn't given much focus from anybody. And the thing is that my career, and I know a lot of people, younger people, attribute this to, is they think of their career as who they are. And so if they don't have focus, then they start losing self-confidence. And that's what happened to me. And so I, at one point, actually even attempted, or not attempted, but thought about suicide, right? And and thankfully I got some coaching or someone to set me on the right path. And so I've become, like I said, I was working as a career counselor with unemployment people here in California for the last 20 years and helping them find work. And that's really what brought me to this.
Right. I know that's an amazing story, and it's amazing how counselors and coaches sometimes can make the biggest difference, and they might not even know that they're doing that. So it's really cool that that happens. And your story is definitely, I can attest to it myself, that when I was in undergrad, I had a great difficult time trying to figure out what I wanted to do as far as the rest of my life. And everybody was telling me you should be a doctor and so on and so forth. And although I liked helping people, it just somehow there was something amiss and I couldn't figure it out. And I tried so many different things, literally every morning, waking up and asking myself, so what do I want to be, or what do I want to do? And I didn't have, I had a big blank basically. And it totally robbed me of my confidence in that sense. To the point where when I look back, those 4 years were some of my saddest years, basically, as far as my mood and my attitude. So definitely. So I agree with you as far as that's concerned and the impact that it can have. All right. So now let's go back to the young adults. What would be the one tip, one suggestion that you have for them if they're watching this and afterwards they want to get busy? Moving in the right direction, what would be the most important thing or the one thing that they could actually do to set themselves up on the right way?
The one thing, well, the two things. The one thing is to work with someone like me. That's the one thing ultimately, because I have a lot of experience and can share that with you. But going with that, the second thing would be to find a community, find other people. Like work search cannot be done in a vacuum. Cannot be done in a vacuum. There is a lot of focus put on the resume, and that the resume is held as really important. And it used to be even more important in my generation. But in this generation, it's really, it's really networking and talking to people. And so get started with that. Even if you choose not to work with someone like myself, surround yourself with other people to help you through this process.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I can, again, going back to the undergrad years, I really isolated myself and I felt like I had to really figure this out on my own, and I wouldn't welcome input because, I felt that it would dilute who it is that I wanted to be, and then I would lose my focus on what I wanted to do. But the trouble with that is that even if you are trying to figure it out for yourself, you need to verbally process, you need to be able to talk things out, you need to get, broaden your horizons as far as what support and what options are available to you. And sometimes if you're just sitting in a room and thinking by yourself, that doesn't necessarily happen. You miss out on this very important piece. So very, very important. So speaking of that, Malcolm, how can people connect with you or look for support from you?
It's really easy. So you could go to social media, whatever social media it is. It's my name, Malcolm Grissom, in one word. So LinkedIn, whatever. My website is malcolmgrissom.com. My email is malcolm@malcolmgrissom.com.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to make sure that all of the proper spelling, everything is in the description box of the video. So you guys, please go ahead, take Malcolm up on this offer. Even if especially if you guys are parents and you see your kids going through that period of self-discovery, don't let them kind of float there by themselves. And also remember that as a child of that age, they're trying to set their own identity. So sometimes the parents are not necessarily the best source of input for them. They don't want that because that's going to conflict with their age and their identity.
Mhm.
So it becomes really, really important that a third person that is non-family member can come in and help them out. So definitely check Malcolm out, reach out to him, and suggest for your teenager, suggest for your young adult to go ahead and reach out and connect with Malcolm and possibly be part of the community that he has created so that he can verbally process, he can find support, and he has a conduit for figuring out his way. So thank you, Malcolm, for providing this space for them. And thank you, our audience members. By the way, if you haven't already done so, make sure you click subscribe on the subscribe button so you get notified of all the experts that come here, share their community, their expertise, and the gifts that they bring to our channel. And Malcolm, before we finish, any final words for our audience members?
Go forth and have fun. Whatever you do, it needs to be fun. Life is too short not to have fun.
Yes, and this part, we always are so serious about it, your career and resumes, and it does need to be fun, and people who are actually hiring are looking for fun people too.
And that's one more thing that I forgot to mention. So I mentioned that I'm an entertainer. I'm also a comedian, so I've learned also to be able to add humor professionally, right? So that's another
awesome.
tip for me.
That's awesome. Man of many talents. So guys, check Malcolm out and connect with him. Until later, cheers, guys.
Dr. L, thank you.
My pleasure.